People share the creepiest paranormal experience that has ever happened to them. Number 1. So, anyone who rides horses regularly will know being the last one at the barn sucks. So, I was the last person, so I had to shut off the lights. I had to take my horse back to the barn, but where he was kept was not in the main barn. So, I shut off the lights and started walking down the path to the other barn. I didn't have my phone on me, so I just used the moonlight. Mind you, this horse is bomb-proof. He never spooks. I'm walking down a path when he suddenly stops and throws his head back and rears. He has whites in his eyes. I look at what he could possibly be spooking at. I assumed it was an oddly placed shadow, but I couldn't see much, except eyes. I saw human eyes in the shadows. I'm about to scream when my vision goes blank for a second, and I come to. I'm still standing, and my horse has calmed down. I shake it off and continue to the barn and put him away with no problem. Number 2. Night shift in a hospital. Went to the toilet, both cubicles empty. Sat down to do the business, and someone started crying in the next cubicle. Bolted out of there. The other toilet was empty. Different night, soon after I started working on this particular ward. Sat at the bottom of the ward, so me and another nurse could get a good view of everyone. Without looking up from her notes, she said, "Footsteps are back again." I said, "What footsteps?" She just said to listen. Heard footsteps come from the top of the ward to where we were, then go back to the top end. She didn't even flinch, just said, "You get used to it." There were some other issues with that particular unit. Eventually, a priest came to bless it and crashed his car on the way home. It has been decommissioned now. Number 3. My house growing up was a 2-family with a pretty big basement. We lived on the top floor, and the basement was used as storage and as a laundry room. The basement was pretty terrifying. It was super dark. All the lights were in the center of the room, so you had to go into a completely pitch black room. Reach your hands up and pull on a string to turn the light on. I don't think I ever went into the basement without a weapon of some sort. When I was 10, my mom left me a note to move the clothes in the wash to the dryer. So, I went to the basement, picked up a wiffle ball bat, and proceeded into total darkness. I've literally been preparing to turn that light on and see some kind of monster for years. I pull the string, take a step, and look up to see a man. He was breathing heavily and looked disheveled. I completely froze. I'm literally shaking to a point that the wiffle bat is sliding out of my hand. Before I can do or say anything, I hear a gun being cocked, and my father from behind me say, "If you take one step toward my son, I will blow your fucking head off." The man standing before me takes a few steps back, turns, and runs out of the door that leads to the backyard. Long story short, I went downstairs at the exact same time. My dad watched from the kitchen window as 2 guys were being chased by the police through the backyards on my street. He saw one of the men hop the fence into my backyard and check the door to the basement. He realized after a few seconds that I was in the basement. I still struggle to go into the basement. Number 4. Several years ago, I was staying at my uncle's house in a room next to their garage. My uncle and I were supposed to go fishing early the next morning. I woke up and it was pretty dark out, but I saw the silhouette of a guy leaning on the wall looking at me. I assumed it was my uncle and started talking to him. "Yeah, I'm getting up. Let's go," I said. I walked right past him to turn the lights on, turned around and there was no one there. What the fuck? I might be dreaming, I thought. Turned the lights back off and went back to sleep. I didn't think about this again for a couple of months. I was over at my uncle's house again for dinner when his wife says, "I gotta take Uncle Benny's ashes to the mountain and spread them. He's been here for a while." I was like, "Who's Uncle Benny, and what are you talking about?" Apparently, Uncle Benny is my aunt's uncle, who had died several months before I went to my uncle's house. His ashes were in the garage next to where I was sleeping. I wonder if he was looking at me, thinking, who the hell is this guy? Number 5. I'm a firm believer in bad energy because of the summer I spent at my grandma's house. My brother and I loved our grandparents and had no notion that there was anything wrong with them. We thought they loved us even more than our own parents. However, I could never shake the uneasy feeling I always had in that house. I just chalked it up to being away from home and in a new place. One summer, the feeling of dread became more intense. The best way I could describe it was that the house was somehow placed in a surreal nightmare. It didn't feel real, and I could swear there was this heavy sort of darkness looming over us at all times. I'd constantly look behind me because I was certain someone was there. I couldn't take showers and lost sleep that whole time. And somehow, my grandparents didn't seem normal to me anymore. They were the sweetest and still very loving, but in the weirdest way, seemed so sinister. I later found out that my grandmother practiced Santeria, used a Ouija board to call upon the dead, and would routinely curse people she didn't like. More than that, my mom finally told me that her parents abused her whole life, and that Grandpa was a horrible drunk. Number 6. Though it wasn't actually paranormal, it still scared the crap out of me. It was about 3 in the morning, and I had just gotten off YouTube, where I was watching a bunch of videos about the Mothman, who apparently has 2 massive eyes. Important later. I then went to the toilet. I live in a small flat, so the toilet is just down the hallway from me. As my mother was sleeping in the room next to me, and I didn't want to wake her up, I didn't turn any lights on, which is normal for me. When I finished and left the bathroom and decided I was a bit hungry and went to get a snack, also not unusual for me. The kitchen is literally 5 or 6 steps to the left of the bathroom. As I was slowly walking, I thought to myself, imagine if there were 2 big red dots in the window. That would be funny. Then, when I stepped into the kitchen and looked at the window, there were 2 big red dots in the window. I jumped back and gasped rather loudly and tripped on the back of the kitchen door and then fell with a loud bang. I got up immediately and the dots were still there. I quickly noticed that the dots were just a reflection and I felt quite stupid. I looked around for what was causing it, and it was just the plugs for my fridge and boiler, since they are both quite important. They have special switches with exposed fuses, which light up so you can see they're working properly, and they were red as the safety glass on them was colored red. I got my food, then went to bed with a rather large bump on my head. Number 7. So, I don't like talking about this, as I get teased. But, here we go. When I was little, maybe 9, me and my sister loved to go to the thrift store and get stuffed animals with our weekly $5. My sister was probably around 7. This was around 7 years ago, so it's all hazy. But I remember one day we went in and my sister saw this life-size baby giraffe plush. It was about 4 feet tall and she loved it, even though it had almost human eyes. She brought it home after begging my mom for the extra $5 she needed for it, and over time, her collection of these plushies grew. The other 3 she had were a black lab, a lion, and a dolphin. All except the lion started to do strange things if anyone besides my sister was alone with them. My mom recalls many occasions where she'd be cleaning while me and my sister were at school, and Dad was at work when she'd find the dog standing in the hall. All the stuffies were in my sister's closet, so this was odd. She'd always move it back, and like a month later, the same thing would happen. The lion never did anything, if I recall, but the dolphin would move to your face if you were in the closet. It was a huge walk-in. It never left the room, though. My story happened a long time ago, 3 to 4 years ago. I came home from school early as I felt super sick. It was flu season, and I would later find out that you tend to get the flu if you don't get your flu vaccine. My sister wouldn't be here for around 3 more hours, and my mom was getting groceries. Dad was at work. I cuddled up in a blanket and started to watch TV. I remember a storm started to break out. No biggie. As usually in October to November, the storms in some parts of Virginia, where I lived at the time, would get nasty. I was hearing thumping upstairs on and off, but assumed it was the rain, until something happened directly after the thunder hit. I heard a plate crash. My mom has this really old china set. It's super expensive, and it's been in our family forever. Our house shakes during these storms, and I figured a plate must have fell out of the rack. I went to go check to find my 2 cats waiting at the door, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. I opened the door and found the giraffe right at the door. We had moved them into my mom's closet when we moved, so this is where they were. I pushed the giraffe out of the way and checked on the plates. They were fine. I figured I must have simply imagined the sound. As I was going downstairs, the door from the closet swung open so violently it left a mark on the wall from where the knob hit it. I remember tripping down the last few stairs, hiding under a blanket, and calling my mom. She was on her way home. The 20 minutes before she came home were filled with more pounding sounds, and I even heard groaning. We sold the dolls later. Too long, didn't read. Thrift shop stuffies with weird eyes decide to haunt my family. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, Creepy County. Stay tuned for more amazing creepy content.